This is a beginning point. It's the beginning of the rest of my life. I got the meaning, and I got to write it down.
Oh my God. Why is not going right now? I've clicked this button 7 times, Connor.
It's going. We're live, buddy. We're live. No, so let's get it going. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back
to a new thing. So forget it. I'll just do the intro, man. Because what else is new? Of course, I am Laggy McGee. Welcome back to a goddamn.
It's the beginning of the rest of my life. I got the meaning, and I got to write it down, because I don't want to forget it.
Just win, baby.
All right. Jim is struggling very bad with the internet. So maybe I'm going to step in here and say, welcome back to a brand new season of the Gold Jacket podcast. We are back, baby. It has been a while. We're proudly sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. They truly have it all: daily, weekly, and season-long best ball tournaments happen in 365 days a year. Plus, you can play the pick and prop games. Get 5 picks right, and you can win 20 times your money. I'm sure there's a lot of you playing it tonight just for the sake of being able to gamble again and gamble on football. Most importantly, make sure you take advantage of the promo code Undroppables when you sign up, and you can double your initial deposit by up to $100. I'm your host, Connor Donald. You can find me on Twitter at Connor10, that's TEN. And I am joined, as always, by my co-host who is struggling with his internet and struggling to get this going, Gymnastic. You can find him on Twitter at GoldJacketQBs. I guess I call it Twitter and it should be X, but I still can find it by typing twitter.com. So I'm going to keep calling it Twitter until that changes. We are proud members of the Undroppables. You can find them at undroppables.com, at the Undroppables on Twitter, and the Undroppables on YouTube is the channel. Well, Jim, you're with us. It looks like you're with us, so I'm going to let you pick up right there where I left off with the intro.
Pick up right where I left off, obviously, where that choppy connection. We all know Underdog's not an internet company, because if it was, I'd be in the game. Bell, man, and if you ever get this, you want to upgrade internet or anything like this, is terrible. Probably lost all the viewers that were probably going to tune in with that choppy shit. I played my intro 6 times on my end there after not playing ever. But what else is new, man? Like the C's, this is choppy. Hall of Fame games tonight, but Connor, man, what's up?
Well, man, I feel bad. We missed a whole off season by me. You've become this, this new super soccer coach. And I had a second kid who inhabited my basement for about 3 months while we did sleep training. So it's good to be back, and we will definitely get on the right path here in the coming weeks. But we just wanted to get a show in and be able to talk football. So I'm just excited to talk football. What about you, Jim? How are you?
Busy, man. Mondays, Wednesdays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, Fridays. Fuck, they all got a day of soccer somewhere in them. coaching both kids teams, and it's hectic, man. It's hectic. But
Yeah, we don't even know
still
the day of the week anymore.
Oh yeah. You know what? I do know what day it is because it's football, so it's got to be a Thursday because it's in the middle of the week.
This is true, man. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about the
There we
Hall
go.
of Fame
So,
game.
without further ado, talking about me and you. Sorry, buddy. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's start talking about the Hall of Fame game, man. I mean, enough about me and you. As exciting as our lives are, it's we're here to talk football, and we want to talk football. So let's hit up at this Hall of Fame game. I want to know, like, what are you looking forward to tonight, Jim? I know, like, we got the Cleveland Browns, we got the New York Jets. We know we're not going to get Aaron Rodgers, we're not going to get Deshaun Watson, we're not going to get any of the big names. But obviously, there's things to look forward to because it's football and all this camp hype is going around, and we got some guys who might not even make the cut on teams getting hyped out of their mind on Twitter. So what are you most excited to see tonight with football back?
What am I looking forward to? Strange enough as it sounds, Zach Wilson. See what he does today. Obviously, he's not the starter, or he wouldn't be playing right now. I'll admit I was burnt by letting some people talk me into him because I thought he stunk, but took him where I could, where he ended up falling. But this could hopefully be good for him. Sit behind Aaron Rodgers, maybe learn how to act like a professional, prepare like a professional, and maybe get a shot somewhere else later down the road. But just see how he handles, being a backup, and see if it humbles him, right? See if his mechanics have changed. There's a lot, man, but like that's the main one. I don't think, like you said, we're gonna see any big name starters or anybody that will be of significant fantasy value on these rosters. They might get cut, they might get picked up somewhere else, but I don't think it's going to be on either of these two rosters that you're going to see any significant value in the first couple plays going forward today.
I like it. I mean, I'm
looking for anything?
I'm looking forward to seeing some of the hype around some of these guys. I mean, we've talked about and we've seen in one of our group chats a guy who's a big fan of Jeremy Ruckert. So I'm interested to see, what happens with Jeremy Ruckert as a New York Jets tight end. It's pretty crowded there with Conklin, Uzama, Ruckert, Iboa, and Zach Kuntz, which I'm also interested to see Zach Kuntz because he has an amazing athletic profile. He is a massive human being. So if there's anything I'm looking out for the Jets, it's probably to see their tight ends and this Jason Bramley guy, because this Jason Bramley guy is making the most absurd catches. I'm seeing the wildest videos on Twitter of this guy making catches, and people are saying he's going to make the team in this crowded wide receiving field. I'm interested to see in a game situation what Jason Bramley looks like, because it's very different when you're watching these videos and you're seeing guys like jogging and it doesn't really look like they're putting 100% of their effort in versus an actual physical game where we get the opportunity to see a guy like Jason Bramley go to work. On the Cleveland Browns side of things, I mean, I'm not really looking forward to much on that point, except for who's going to back up Nick Chubb. I mean, Jerome Ford's been getting some hype. The Cleveland Browns have been providing a little bit of hype. The fantasy community's providing hype. Somebody's got to step into that role that was once owned by Kareem Hunt. So I'm interested to see what happens behind Nick Chubb. There's Demetric Felton there. There's Jerome Ford. So I'm really interested to see what happens there, because they're going to give touches to some of those RBs and figure out, what's going on behind Nick Chubb, since they didn't bring Kareem Hunt back, a fan favorite of the Gold Jacket podcast.
Oh yeah, I love Kareem Hunt. I like that Brownlee. I do like Brown. Am I lagging again too? Probably.
You're good for now.
Probably. Oh. Yeah, Brownlee, I'm interested, but again, I don't think he makes that Jets 53. like I was saying, like there's going to be some guys that are going to pop maybe this game, but I don't think if they find success, I don't think it's going to be on these 253s. But that's definitely a good guy to be hitting up, and a guy that again you could probably sell for a little bit of pop if he has a good run or two in this game would be Jerome Ford, right? If he has a couple big splash plays, looks like he could be the number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Man.
Sorry about that. What is that coming through? But talking about this draft that happened up here, I was wondering what team or teams do you think did overall well in this draft? You can either go from a real life perspective or the fantasy perspective, whichever way you want to tackle that question.
Well, I'll take it from both perspectives because I want to say Philadelphia because they did, and
Can't say the
by
Eagles
most
either,
standard, I know, but by most standards, people have said the Eagles had a really good draft and stuff. But I'm not going there. I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks. I was a big fan of what the Seattle Seahawks did. Get in Devin Witherspoon. I'm a big, we talked about Jackson Smith-Njigba. So in a way, it actually correlates with fantasy and being excited for fantasy because I think JSN is going to be really great there. He may eventually, usurp Tyler Lockett, and then you got DK Metcalf and JSN there. And, when you look at some of the hype around JSN, there's people actually talking about him becoming the wide receiver 1 in Seattle. Versus you go a guy like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, like completely taken over from those two. So I'm going to be really interested to see what happens there. But I thought the Seattle Seahawks had an incredible draft, given the fact that, they're a team that doesn't need a quarterback, but they could have used one, but they didn't take it. Instead, they went and drafted probably one of the top cornerbacks, and then they went and drafted probably one of the top wide receivers, and they did some work. And I was really impressed with the Seahawks as much as I want to talk about the Eagles draft. I will leave it at that. I will not let my fandom get in the way. What about you, Jim? Whose draft did you like?
Sorry. From a fan perspective, I thought obviously the Falcons with Bijan and the Lions with Gibbs, and that's and Laporta can be pretty sneaky there, and that's only just because of the system that high. Usually will end up in the top 12. So one of those two guys is going to hit. I mean, or both. But so those two teams were pretty good. The one from a real life perspective, like I was Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. To get Stroud and Anderson and do some damage along their trenches. Get Tank Dell. I know he's not a big guy. Stroud wanted. They have a little bit of chemistry. I think he's a pretty good matchup fit with Mechie and Collins because it looks like, take your pick on that one, but it looks like Mechie's actually separating himself with the route running. Tank Dell can work other areas of the field. I think overall, as a football perspective, they smashed, man. Like, not only did they get their potential franchise quarterback, they did some work really protecting him, and that could also be fantasy gold.
I like it. I mean, I thought the Texans had a really good draft as well. I mean, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of critics out there that are, weren't big fans of trading up and getting those 2 picks in the top 3 and so on and so forth, and the cost that it was to them in future drafts. They still got it first again next year. I mean, and for fantasy, it's going to be really interesting. We were the same. Me and you were on the same side. We were both Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. But, I mean, pick your poison. Each of them have their own strengths. Each of them have their own weaknesses. And it was, I'm just glad no one went out and and way out and got the Will Levis or something and got that going, because I don't think Will Levis is a guy. We've talked about that, and I don't think Anthony Richardson is. He's super good for fantasy, and I get it. I get the upside. I just don't know if he sticks. But we're going to see on that as well. But we were big Stroud and Young guys, and we had Stroud and Young out ahead by a mile on Levis and Richardson. But now we wait and see on these rookies and what happens. But I really like Stroud. I think he can be really good for this. Anderson's a franchise-altering defensive player. You get 2 anchors on each side of the ball. Now you just got to figure out what else you need to fill in the gaps and make the team really good. So who knows? It could be end up a really positive draft, despite what they had to trade to move back up and get Will Anderson.
After the drafts, post fantasy drafts, or because I'm assuming most of your drafts are done, right? How many more you got? Maybe 3 or 4?
No, my drafts are all done except for, like a redraft, which I don't think that the value matters as much for a rookie in redraft. So, but I mean, if we're talking rookies and the landing spot shook out, I mean, obviously the hype train is out of control for Bijan Robinson. And then you see the videos from camp, and he's so good at it as a receiver. He's so good as a runner. He's just so good altogether. But that's like, the consensus one. So, I mean, I don't want to roll with the consensus pick like that. I was actually a big fan of Jalen Hyatt and where he landed. I have him in a lot of leagues. I took the shot because he was dropping to like late round 2, early round 3. And now you see the videos coming out. He made that amazing catch today. There's a video where he burned a double team and then made this crazy over the shoulder catch that I didn't know Daniel Jones could even throw a ball like that. So that was really impressive. And when you look at it, it's Jalen Hyatt and Wan'Dale Robinson are like the only 2 wide receivers. And I think Paris Campbell now are the only 3 wide receivers under contract after next year in New York. Everybody else is on 1-year contracts. So like there's a wide open field there for Jalen Hyatt to stand out and take control. And I don't know if it's true or not, but reportedly he ran 24 miles per hour, which is faster than Tyreek Hill's fastest on field speed and just 3 miles per hour shy of Usain Bolt. I don't know how true it is, but it's something that's popping up and hyping. So obviously I was a big fan because you could get him like dirt cheap. So I was a big fan of Hyde, and now the hype's going, and obviously they drafted him semi-high. So there is an expectation that he's going to step in and have a specific role, I think, in this offense, and he can be really good. And then another name that I like, and
of course the Giants of all teams. Receivers. Small slot receivers.
You're only guys under contract all weigh like well under 200 pounds. Like I don't get it, but I mean, whatever works for them. But I think that Hyde's been overshadowed by Waller because Waller's uncoverable and Waller's this and Waller's that. And I think Waller is going to be incredible there. I think he was a great get for them. But I think that some people are falling to the wayside because of the hype around Darren Waller. And then, I mean, others like there's others that you could look at. Like I like Luke Musgrave. It looks like Luke Musgrave could have some potential upside there at tight end when you're looking at guys like, he's got that connection with Jordan Love building and stuff. And he has an opportunity there. They did draft 2 tight ends, but he's a more athletic one. And then you look at like, there's a lot of tight ends who could, have that top 12, top 5 tight end upside even this year that came out of this draft. So I'll be interested to see how the tight ends shake out. But I think, things are good for Michael Mayer. Things are good for Luke Musgrave. Things are good for some of those names that people let slide that you might have been able to get a hold of late. But who do you like? I'm going on about all these names. Who did you like from this after the draft spot landed?
Oh, Jonathan Mingo. Jonathan fucking Mingo. Oh my god, he is
How
the
did I
guy I
not
want to
know?
leave.
How did I
I
not
want to
know?
leave. I want to leave like 99% of my drafts with Jonathan Mingo and like other some fucking sharp guys and some drafts with me are scooping that guy a little earlier than I want. Like Beasy is one of those dudes, man. He's all over Mingo, sniping him on me in a lot of leagues. Man, I want Mingo. That wide receiver room is wide fucking open. It's Terrence Marshall, who you can get dirt cheap in a lot of leagues. A little bit more expensive now. In the last couple of weeks, the hype's been building on him, and that is because Nuke is not there. He went to Titans. That wide receiver room is wide open. It's Terrace Marshall, who I was not a fan of coming out, and Jonathan Mingo, who I'm a big fan of coming out. And those two guys, similar bodies, man. Jesus, it looks like they're going to try to go for the Twin Towers again. Just chuck it up and hope, man, and let their small QB just chuck it up. But yeah, I like Mingo. Steve Smith likes Mingo. That reassured everything I needed to know. I doubted him before, and he made me eat crow with Cooper Kupp. So never, ever again will I ever doubt that man, ever. But he reaffirmed it. So yeah, man, that's fucking, I love it. On the running back side of the ball, a guy was taking dart shots at, but before it was Chase Brown, but now, to be honest with you, that's a dude where Derrick Henry is not under contract next year. So I can see one of two things happening. They run Derrick Henry right through the fucking ground, which I don't think he's going to wheel fall off, but I going to trade Derrick Henry for whatever value they could possibly get to a contender, because he's going to walk. They're not going to fucking pay him. And Tajay Spears has, like, to me, the most wide opportunity to an RB1 season or RB1 carries out of any of these rookies for that you can have for relatively cheaper. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, no, I like your thoughts there, because there's some
those two motherfuckers.
there's some running backs who are rich. Like, we talk in a group about Devin Achani and the possibility of, what if Dalvin Cook lands there? What if he's just a guy who's going to catch footballs? How much can you really catch a football with Jalen Waddle there, with Tyreek Hill there? How many targets are you really going to get if you're going to be almost exclusively in that role? And they're still looking for another running back. I still believe that the Miami Dolphins will bring in another running back before all is said and done. There's too many good free agent vets out there that I feel like this AFC East is all over these veteran running backs, and at least one or two of those guys are going to land there, whether it's Dalvin Cook, whether it's Leonard Fournette, whether it's Zeke. At least two of those guys are landing in the AFC East. For some reason, these teams have really good running backs, but feel they need to fill it out with another one of these old running backs. And whatever, it's just going to muddy the waters for people who own, Ramondre Stevenson, for the people who invested really early on Devin Achani and stuff. And then there's the Kendre Miller one. If there was one thing that stands out about training camp that caught my attention, is the news yesterday that there is an incoming suspension for Alvin Kamara. That, to me, is your window. And we were talking about it in our group chat. That was the blinking, the flashing lights, that if you took Kendre Miller, I feel like if somebody is willing to give you a first plus, when we were talking in the group chat, they were like, no one's going to give you a first plus. I mean, we don't know the length of the suspension. We don't know what's going to happen. Even if you get a second plus, and the plus is a player who you can plug and play right away, Kendre Miller, as soon as Alvin Kamara's back, is not going to be, this guy who gets an 80-70% opportunity share. That's suddenly going to become like a 60-40 split. And I don't think Kendre Miller's on the good side of the 60. I think he's on the weaker side of the 40. But I mean, I know we're going to get into it later about cultural shifts happen in fantasy. And I know running back is something where we've seen a massive shift. Like there's just like a big boulder that slammed through the running back tower this offseason. And now people are probably really rethinking the running back position. I'm not saying Kendre Miller is bad to have on your roster, with Alvin Kamara being the primary person who's going to have a suspension, who's 27 years old, going on the back end, reaching that running back cliff. But I am saying that I don't feel there's going to be a better or richer time to sell Kendre Miller.
I think Kendre Miller's. I agree with you. For the most part, he's going to get his opportunity. He's going to ebb and flow. He's going to get his opportunity early, but not as much as people think with Jamal Williams there. Then it's going to definitely get dialed back with Kamara's there. But he's going to, I think, have a shot to be the future in New Orleans for 2024. Like Kendre Miller is a 24 play. In my opinion, if you're set at wide receiver in your dynasty team, like you got like some nice fucking young guys, like you got like a Chase and Amon-Ra, I don't know, somebody else like a Devontae Smith or something. Like you got like some nice young core guys. You got a Kendre Miller to me is a good stash because he's a guy that you can just like back up as one of your aging vets is going to cycle down in 2024. He is not a play for 2023. If you drafted Kendre Miller to plug in as your RB2, nah, bro, I don't think so. That's just that's me personally. So we kind of talked about the aging, or the rookie pieces or whatever in the and the draft seasons, but any even vet news that in training camps that you've been that caught your eye in particular? There's a dude that was popping me last couple of days, but I'll let you go first.
I guess the last thing I want to say is like, so on that New Orleans front is Jamal Williams is a guy who's going to do his work and his damage inside the 20, the 10, the 5, and on the goal line. Alvin Kamara is going to do the pass catching work. To me, Kendre Miller, what value is presented for a guy who just works between the 20s, not inside the 20s or not in the passing game? And that's where I have the issue, because they did sign Jamal Williams to that 3-year contract, and he's likely there for the next 2 years. So he's going to eat away at, the potential touchdown upside and red zone upside that might exist in that offense. And then, of course, the wild card is Alvin Kamara. So you never know. It could go either way, but I think Jamal Williams is there for at least 2 years, and Jamal Williams makes a 2024 play rather difficult. Ask the DeAndre Swift manager from last year how big of a pain Jamal Williams was for them, because then you will find out Kendre Miller may be in the same situation for at least for 2023 and 2024. And then you're looking at year 3 and what is there. So that's my reason why I stand on I don't know how much better opportunity you get, except for once the season starts and he has a couple good games because Alvin Kamara isn't there. Maybe that's where there's another sell window, but I don't know if he's a guy I can keep around. But obviously, like you said, we're going to talk about the cultural shift of the running back department a bit later in the show. And that's one of the areas where there is that shift where you probably need to handcuff more than you would think, or where you're more open to the playmakers. And you need to look at those guys who have the proper playmaking set to stand out above, just the Derrick Henrys of the world who just crunch bodies for their job. But as for the agent vet news, I don't know if I have like any agent vets I'm like super interested in, but I mean, like one of my favorite ones of this past offseason to get is Antonio Gibson. I was doing some looking into him, for the first state with like the guy played or came back too prematurely from a fracture in his foot. JD McKissick was there for the first 8 weeks, averaging 5 targets per game. If you take if you take a look at Antonio Gibson, there's a major opportunity there. Brian Robinson, to me, needs to find the end zone, and I don't think this offense is the one that's going to find the end zone or score a whole lot yet. I like some of the pieces there. I just don't know if I trust the quarterback in the room. Great value, Sam Howell, if you want to grab him for super flex leagues and maybe try and flip him after he gets a few good games. I don't know if he's going to be the answer to the Washington quarterback woes, but I love Antonio Gibson because when you break it down, like he was getting 5 targets to Brian Robinson's 1 throughout the season. That value to me, if you're not finding the end zone, that value, like if you take that and you take the JD McKissick workload, this is a 90+ target likely guy. And you look at training camp, Brian Robinson's trying to pump his own brakes and trying to talk himself out like I'm going to be better this year. I came back from being shot in the leg. I don't deny he's going to be better. But who is Ron Rivera talking about? Who are the beat reporters talking about? It's Antonio Gibson. And Antonio Gibson is currently ranked as the RB 38 for the Fantasy Pros Expert platform, and he has never finished outside the top 30. And last season, was his worst finish from a fantasy points per game perspective. And I feel that the biggest reason was because of the injury, because he was rushed back, because he missed time, because JD McKissick took some of that all-important receiving workload at the beginning of the season. I think we're going to see something from Antonio Gibson this year. And like for all the hype that I saw on Twitter, like it feels like his value's not there. It feels like the ADP's not there. So, I mean, I guess we wait and see on that one. Otherwise, like Irv Smith, I'm there again. I know me and you, we've done it for 2 years. Our heart's been broken. I think he's in a better offense with Cincinnati. I think he's going to have opportunity. The biggest thing, the backbreaker, literally and figuratively, is those injuries. The man's got to stay healthy, but we saw Hayden Hurst. He got some opportunities. He got some hype. He didn't exactly finish the way we wanted him to, but there's a chance that Irv Smith could, and there's some videos coming out of camp. He's looking pretty good. He's making some catches. He's a part of the offense. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but Hayden Hurst was a 70 target guy in that offense, and I think he missed 3 or 4 games last season. So if Irv Smith can stay healthy, there could be a really good opportunity there. And because of how cheap he is now, like, I mean, you're not hyping a guy who's expensive anymore. We're hyping a guy who, if he disappoints, oh crap, he was our 3rd tight end probably on our roster. He was probably not a guy that you went out there and played week in and week out. And that's really it for like aging vets. And I mean, Irv Smith isn't even that old, but those were 2 names that just stuck out to me that I really like and think that there's a bit of a value on. But what about you on the aging vet side?
Man, I love those 2. Fucking love Antonio Gibson. I actually took him in my Scott Fishbowl. Man, that's a great shout out. He is going to fucking beast. Kind of just like, oh man. And I got like a good running back room too, man. Like I got like Christian McCaffrey and Nick Chubb and DeAndre Swift and Pacheco and Antonio Gibson. It's like it's nice. So I'll give you 2. I'll give you a wide receiver and a tight end. Brandon Cooks, because he's cheap as shit. Could do some damage. Everybody, we had hopeful aspirations for Michael Gallup, but who they're bringing in, right? Like they brought in Brandon Cooks. They didn't just like let Gallup do what he's gonna do. The other one that that I really like, that I think is a sneaky play because he's cheap as shit, just like Irv Smith, is Hunter Henry. Sneaky connection with Mac Jones. All the reports out of camp are saying him and Mac have a solid connection. They've been there a couple years together. He has an incredible opportunity to score a lot of touchdowns, as evident when he came to New England, scoring the 9. He's never had under 12 yards a reception in New England. I think his lowest was 10 his entire season, and that was when he's fighting with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen over in LA. Every time Mac Jones talks about anything in a press conference, it's all about trust, trust, trust. And who does he trust? With Jacoby Myers leaving, because that was a big trust guy for Mac Jones, was Jacoby Myers. It's Hunter Henry. And he, let's say, I wouldn't say formations, but play nuances that Bill O'Brien likes to deploy. Bill O'Brien does a nice mesh, I would assume, of the Alabama and the Patriot way. As much as everybody wants to shit on, didn't really want to shit on Bill O'Brien. Would Houston like to have him back and making the playoffs 5 out of 6 years? You know what I mean? I think it's very sneaky. And again, this is a guy that has potential to sneak in 5 to 12 tight end range, and he's tight end 16, tight end 18, tight end 20. Cheap, 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 cheap. So I don't know. Those are my two guys for you.
I like Hunter Henry, and I've also seen a lot of good things said about Mike Gesicki, and Mike Gesicki's really cheap, and they want to use Mike Gesicki as in the Jonnu Smith role, or the expectation that they had for Jonnu Smith as a big wide receiver, a jumbo wide receiver, and he's doing some good things, and Mac Jones talks pretty highly of him. So I mean, we could have that 2 tight end set in New England, where people are trying to get like Ramondre, and people are trying to go for the richer pieces, and the pieces that you really want are the 2 tight ends, and one's super athletic and one's just super reliable. So you just might need to look at those 2 guys. And I honestly think both of those guys can end in the top 12 range, depending on their usage. If Mike Gesicki's used the way they say, is just a jumbo wide receiver with his athletic ability, and then you got Hunter Henry, who you're going to use in the red zone, those 2 guys can be guys who could see, 275 target guys, and could really go up the tight end board pretty quickly. So I like the Hunter Henry one. I also have to shout out Mike Gesicki, because I was seeing some good things, reading some good things about Mike Gesicki. So I do really like the prospect of Gesicki too. Is there any rookies you're keeping your ears open for that might pop early that can be had for cheap?
Yeah. Actually, one that comes to mind and has a really good path to a good target share is Michael Wilson out of Arizona. The other one, it's going to cost a little bit more, especially with the Tim Patrick and KJ Hamler injury news. That's Sean Payton's first ever draft pick as a Denver Bronco head coach. The former pick held by the Kansas City Chiefs. The wide receiver that I would have liked the Chiefs to draft at pick 63. Those are the 2 guys, but obviously Michael Wilson a lot cheaper, and he's a guy that has a very good opportunity path to pop.
Yeah, I like Michael Wilson as well. I think if he does pop though, you got them with probably 2 top 10 picks next season. They're really eyeing down the wide receiver next year. They're probably going to work on that position. I think if any of these guys pop, you have to move off of them. The only one who could pop that I might keep would be Trey McBride. I think he's a guy who can pop but can sustain that pop, whereas Michael Wilson, probably replaceable. Rondale Moore has clearly proven likely replaceable. There's a lot of just purely replaceable wide receivers there in Arizona. So I don't think if Wilson pops, that I would be holding him and saying he's the future of this franchise. I'm not selling him. If I could get a second rounder, if he starts popping off, I would probably sell him for a second rounder. You got him for 0, nothing. He was probably an undrafted guy in your league, and you went out to the waiver wires and said, holy crap, this guy was left out here, and look at his opportunity, and you snagged him. If you can get any type of value out of that, you probably get the value. I mean, I kind of alluded to
but he's got a good athletic profile. He does. He just didn't play a lot of games. That was it. Mm-hmm. That's why he slipped and fell. He didn't play games. He had weird fucking injuries. But again, yeah, obviously, like I would sell any of them, and even Trey McBride, I would sell, just because of the 5 to 12 range of tight ends, and somebody always popping in there that's new. I would still sell him because of cost over the positional value greater to sell him for the second and take a hit on a wide receiver and just pick up another tight end. You know what I mean? That's my thought anyway. Sorry for cutting you off, man.
No,
Apologize.
I agree. Like if you have the opportunity to sell a tight end, if someone really likes a tight end and they're willing to give you something like a second for for a majority of these tight ends is a fair deal. Because I was looking at, man, I wish I remembered who did the post, but somebody posted and they said there's such a minimal difference between tight end 6 and tight end 16 year in and year out, that like what difference does it make if you have that guy who pops off and someone's like, I'll give you a second for him? I would definitely sell that, unless you're talking, like you're talking to Mark Andrews or Kyle Pitts or some of these guys who've proven that they're commodities that are worth the first round value or the multiple first value or whatever they might be worth. After that, though, like it's a crapshoot after the top 4 or 5, and you can really just take that shot. And if anybody's willing to buy, you definitely sell it, because you look year in and year out at who finishes in the top 12. It is so rare that you see from 5 through 12 the tight ends be the same or the same guys appear there. It's all about where people land, the opportunities that they get, and what they do with it. Look at Gerald Everett, look at like Hayden Hurst, look at these types of guys who get the hype behind them, who landed in that, got those opportunities and got chances to be like that. I agree. You definitely take a chance to sell any tight end if somebody's open to it. For me, I kind of gave it away. Like Jalen Hyatt seems like a guy who's still really cheap, but might get more expensive once he starts making some big plays. A lot of the tight ends, I'd be all in for a lot of the tight ends. Like I said, outside of, Michael Mayer, who's probably pretty expensive. Outside of Dalton Kincaid, who's probably very expensive, and the hype behind him. Like there's a lot of tight ends who landed with really good opportunities and who are like the primary tight ends in these offenses. And they likely will get the opportunity to pop off if they build the proper rapport. Even Michael Mayer, like when you watched in drafts, he fell way farther than I expected in a lot of drafts. And I was sitting there and I was saying, like, this guy was like a consensus guy. He's just not sexy. He's just not fun. He's not like Dalton Kincaid. I get it. He has hands like glue. And that was one of the things I pointed out in our group chat. His hands were like glue. And it immediately stood out to me when I was watching film on Kincaid. Mayer, he's got good hands. They're not like glue, but he's got really good hands. And he's just not exciting. He blocks pretty well. He catches the ball well, but he's just not going to pop. He's not super athletic, but he's got an amazing opportunity. OJ Howard got let go. They signed another tight end, but who cares? They drafted Michael Mayer the way they drafted him for a reason. So I'm looking at a lot of those tight ends, and if they're able to stick, and if they're able to take advantage of the opportunity that they're given, then they're super, super cheap. And they're guys that can pop off, like Luke Musgrave, like Michael Mayer, some of those guys. It wasn't, and it's not a rookie, but keep an eye on the Dallas Cowboys tight end situation, because I'm a big Jake Ferguson fan. I really liked Jake Ferguson last year too. And I like Peyton Hendershot. I think Luke Schoonmaker, I thought it was a reach. It was a really bad draft pick. I don't think he's going to be a guy who works or pops off in this offense, but definitely like keep an eye on Hendershot, who could be on a lot of your waiver wires. And I like Jake Ferguson a lot, who won't be on your waiver wire, might be able to be head for kind of cheap and get a really good opportunity. So not a rookie, but just another name that I thought about. And I like talking tight ends for some reason. So just a name that I really had to bring up. But what about should we move on to some talk about like what we noticed from last season and what happened last season? What are some lessons you learned last fantasy season, and what are some things you won't do going forward based on those lessons that you've learned?
Man, so fuck. One thing, there's definitely a few. One thing, and it kind of goes to the next question with the cultural shift, is the running back landscape. It's changing. Am I lagging? You know I'm laughing. We kind of knew in personal group chat that, you know, it was kind of coming to an end where like one or two bell cows were there and volume's king, but you got to really be looking for guys. And you said it earlier in the pod that get those money looks. You know, Jamal Williams is one of them. He gets those money looks inside the 5-yard line. Why was he so valuable? 17 touchdowns, 10 of them inside the 5. Like, it's insane. You got to pick the guy that's going to be the pass catcher or get the high money carries. You know what I mean? Who cares if you're between the 20s? That doesn't do shit for me. If you get 10, 11 carries, 80 yards and like a catch, that's it. Like one catch. I want those money carries. Like if you're only going to get like 10 carries, give me a touchdown. Right? If you're only going to get 6 carries, give me something. They better be valuable. So I'm not going to really invest too heavily in the running backs anymore. You know, take some dives at it. I know I'm doing it. I took RB heavy approach, but that's a redraft. That's a redraft of young guns, man, and wide receivers like these Garrett Wilsons, these Chris Olaves, Jalen Waddles. The got to get them early. Got to get them as soon as possible in your draft pick. Take as many shots in your rookie drafts in the second round on as many wide receivers as you can take, and hope that, you know, 2, 3, 4 of them end up hitting, and see what you can do from there, right? Like if you load up, like I'm loading up on back end, shotgun firing at wide receivers now, and taking them like they're the core, they're the lifeblood. A lot of leagues I'm playing in there are start 3 wide receivers. You can flex another 2. And these, with the passing league happening, these studs are studs, man. You know what I mean? If you can get a wide receiver getting a 20% target share at, you know, 21, 22 years old, even like the Drake Londons on a lesser level, like that, that's my approach now, man. Like,
no, absolutely. I agree. I like that.
Wide receivers
I like
on
that
every
approach.
rookie draft from second round on.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that approach. I mean, wide receivers, like, you know, a 20% target share in an offense that's going to throw the ball at a rate of 30 to 40 times a game, which we're seeing in a lot of offenses now, is a lot more valuable than having a 40% or 50% opportunity share like a running back would in an offense that runs the ball, you know, 25 times a game and targets the running back position 5 times a game. Like your opportunity share is far less if you're taking like 40% or 50% of that type of pie versus 20% of a far greater pie. It's what you do with those targets. It's going to be the biggest difference maker. And that's what differentiates the people who take the wide receivers early from the ones who just take the shots later on and hope that they got their guy or that they hit. I agree with you. Like the running back landscape, like we were talking about in our group chat, you need to find the playmakers who, at the same time, can stand out in multiple areas. Don't just have solely the pass catcher, because solely the pass catcher, yes, it's worth 2 times the value to as a running back to have the pass catching, but most of those guys are catching between 50 or receiving 50 to 75 targets a game. It's not like in a season. It's not like those ones who you're going to always get 100+ target guys. So you got to be cautious with those guys, because if they're not catching 95% of passes, you're getting a guy who's going to catch 30 to 45 passes, and it's far less valuable. You got to find those guys who are either like red zone monsters or paired with like a pass catcher, or pass catcher paired with, really good between the 20s or between the tackles. Like you really got to find those different skill sets that stand out in multiple areas versus just one area. You don't want, as much as we love Jamal Williams last year, there's so few Jamal Williams in the world. As much as we may love the solely pass catcher guy, you need a guy who can have the balance of having, 6 to 8 carries a game while seeing, or 6 to 10 targets a game while seeing, 4 to 8 targets. So you get 6 to 10 carries, 4 to 8 targets. If you get that healthy share of it constantly, and they're able to play make and stand out in a multitude of areas, that's what's gonna stand out. And I think you're gonna see a lot of people watch tape differently for a fantasy standpoint with running backs going forward, because you want those guys who are gonna be able to stand out. Because now I have fears in Jacksonville with a guy, if you're holding on to Travis Etienne, like, sure, that Doug Peterson's talking about getting him 1,600, 1,700 yards. This isn't a guy who did that on the ground in college. This isn't a guy that I'm looking at and saying, okay, he had 1,100 yards last year, good for him. Yeah, he's definitely going for 1,600 this year. Like, that just doesn't make sense. Josh Jacobs had 1,700 last season, and he led the entire league. And now you're telling me Travis Etienne's going to go off and get that? Unlikely, because they went and drafted Tank Bigsby. And Tank Bigsby's starting to stand out in camp, including something we didn't know for sure he had, but his hands are standing out. So it makes it really difficult from a running back perspective to gauge that. But I would be fearful as a Travis Etienne manager and what might happen there. But I do like your approach from wide receiver. You take 3 or 4 wide receivers early, you're going to hit with probably, say you take 4 of them, you're probably hitting with 3 of them. Take 4 running backs early, you're probably hitting with 1 or 2 of them, and then a couple of them will fall off the face of the earth after 3 or 4 seasons. Whereas the wide receivers, the longevity's there. And we were touting it last offseason, and I think we continue to tout it. The lesson learned, punt the tight end position, for crying out loud. Like, a guy like Kyle Pitts, to me, he's good, but he's really rich, and he's got to start getting there for you. And I know you got to wait 3 years, but what is the point in investing so early in a guy you got to wait till he's 25 years old or 24 years old to start paying dividends on, when you could punt it and get one of the guys, that a gold jacket guy that we loved last season, Jawan Johnson? You got him off your waiver wire, and he ended up being one of those guys who exploded into the top 12. And this year, look at his rapport that he's building with Derek Carr, and he's going to get even more opportunity again this year in that offense. Like, these are the types of guys you can get. Irv Smith this year maybe could be a guy that you get for almost nothing that could pop into something. Like, just punt the tight end position. I don't know how many times this lesson has to be learned, and will it ever happen that we get a guy like Travis Kelce who completely owns and rules the top of the tight end board for what is it, like 10 years straight now? I just don't know if you're going to get that many more Travis Kelce's. Before Travis Kelce, you had Gonzalez, you had some of these tight ends who stood out, but did they rule the top of the board for as long and as stable? Like, we're not talking top 3, we're talking the number 1 tight end year in and year out. Like, minus 1 year, like in the last 8 years, it was 1 year that he wasn't the number 1 tight end. Like, I just don't think you're going to see that often from the tight end position. So, I mean, you can punt the tight end and you can get far more valuable wide receivers, running backs.
Last time it wasn't a tight end was Delaney Walker was the number 1.
Yes, and which was obviously a very obscure season that doesn't happen all that often either. So, like, to me, just punt the tight end position at this point. Like, I get the value of a Travis Kelce, and I think that everyone's reaching for Mark Andrews will be Travis Kelce, Kyle Pitts will be Travis Kelce, Darren Waller will be Travis Kelce. I just don't know if I believe that's going to happen, and that we're going to get a guy like Travis Kelce. We were privileged to get him in our fantasy lifetime, and I'm not sure we get it again. So that's my lesson that I learned, is just like, I full on embraced the tight end punt.
And that is based on a running back. As you said, you wanted to find running backs or value in running back. I was just really interested. What is your opinion on, real quick, Miles Sanders going forward? If you had him in a dynasty, what are you doing?
Well, Miles Sanders has weak knee.
Because there's reports like they want him to catch 50 passes.
Yeah,
like
they
50
want
passes.
they want him to do a lot. Like they want him to be like a 3-down back, like, 50, catch 50 passes, carry the load of 200, 250 carries. This is not a guy who's been able to do that, not with any sustainable proof, especially with his health. And so I have serious concerns about that. You're asking an Eagles fan who put up with 4 years of it and got last year was his healthiest year. You got 1 out of 4 seasons where he's fully healthy. Now you have him on a 3-year contract. You want him to be a bell cow back. I get the upside. The upside definitely is there. But do you trust that this man can stay healthy? And do you trust them to give him that load, or do you think at some point they start to manage that load because he starts to get banged up, the wear and tear starts to happen, he lands on more week in and week out injury reports? I think like you probably, if he pops early, I think I would sell. Like if he's going off and getting 15, 20 carries a game, like the Eagles wouldn't give him, and he's getting, 5 to 8 targets a game, like he's getting pure, like 90% opportunity share. Like we're talking like the Josh Jacobs target, like opportunity share of last season. I'm selling unless I'm contending. I'm selling because there's going to be no richer opportunity to get rid of Miles Sanders for some people who've been holding him for probably the last 4 years, waiting for this opportunity. I think your time is going to come very quickly, and you have to take advantage of it. This coming from an Eagles fan who put up with 3 years where he played like 12 games or less, and then we finally get a set 18-game season in the guy, or 17-game season because he didn't play the 18th game. You finally get a season where he gets pretty much a full season, and you're going to buy into, oh, this guy's going to do it. This guy in his age 26 season, he's going off. I don't believe it. I don't buy it.
And a big question too, that is Miles Sanders a guy like Zeke or Fournette be signed and steal a bunch of his fantasy thunder?
I could see it. I mean, I feel like they're pretty confident with like Chuba Hubbard there behind him. But like, if say you go through training camp, he starts to get banged up, or you see some wear and tear starting like early, like maybe I could maybe see it just for the sake of, having that guy. If there's still a guy sitting there like week 1's approaching and Fournette's still there or Zeke's still there and they have no clear indication of signing anyways, I could see it. I could definitely see it. Like it's not a deep backfield, and it could definitely fit like Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders, and a Fournette or Zeke would be a fine backfield, and fine enough that Sanders owners would hate him, would hate the move. But I mean, it's not a deep backfield, so I could definitely see it. I think they want Miles Sanders to be more than he can be, and they may learn that lesson kind of early on. And I could be completely wrong, but I don't know if you get 2-3 years of this. That's for sure.
Awesome. So clock says it's going to hit 8 o'clock. That means Hall of Fame is kicking off in Canton. Connor, man, it's been fucking awesome getting to actually be able to talk to you. But we got to go. So I want to thank everybody for coming, watching the choppy waves of sea that is the internet, and me and and Connor go at it, man. Thanks for watching, listening, and all your support. Make sure to rate, review, like, and subscribe wherever you watch or listen to this podcast or video stream. Follow me and Connor. Is it X now, Connor, or is it still Twitter? Is it Twitter X? I have no idea. Me at Gold Jacket QBs. You can see it there underneath my name. Connor at Connor10. That's TEN, not the ones and the zeros. You see it underneath his name. Make sure to follow everybody at the Undroppable crew. That's Undroppables on Twitter, I guess. Is it the Undroppables FF YouTube? You know what, man? I got to get better at this. Absolutely dropping the ball, just like I do every fucking week. Choppy seas. But want to fucking thank everybody for tuning in. Till next time, hopefully by regular season kickoff, I might be not too bad. I got 1 minute to kill this off before an hour. Connor, man, awesome time, buddy. my outro not going to play?
This is
Of
a
course it's
beginning
not gonna
point.
play. What the fuck?
This is the beginning of the rest of my life.